Today, I'm going to show you how to make refried beans, fresh homemade flour tortillas, fresh salsa, and I'm also making a cucumber fresh water drink that's so good. I'm putting this meal together and making bean and cheese tacos. It's budget friendly, it gets us through hard times, and it's so delicious. Today, I'm working out of my cookbook for two of the recipes. The first one is the soft flour tortillas. I'll show you what it looks like. For those of you that have the cookbook, thank you. And for those of you that are thinking about buying it, I'll put a link below in the description. Okay, so let's put these tortillas together. In a large bowl, I have added my all-purpose flour. To that, I will be adding the salt. And like I always say, salt ratios are up to your palate. Here, I'm going to be adding baking powder. Be sure to check the description below this video for the ingredient list and measurements. I'm going to give that a really good mix. And the next ingredient, you can use different types of fat. I'm going with rendered bacon fat or bacon grease. I have in my little bacon grease bowl. And I'm going to scrape that out. It's around 1/4 cup to 1/3 cup. And I'm going to just incorporate that into the dry mix for these flour tortillas. You could also skip the bacon fat and use shortening. I used to use margarine if that's all I had, butter, even cooking oil. It all works. So now I'm going to add 1 cup of hot water, and the temperature of the water is as hot as your hands can take it. I have worked up to mixing hot water, but you might use warm. That's okay. So I'm going to combine this well, keep it in the bowl until a dough ball forms like this. And then I'm going to start kneading it on a work surface. This is a clean work surface. And once the dough comes together and springs back, you're good. It takes like 10 minutes. So now I'm just going to divide the dough. And I am going to make these kind of small. So this dough, I will divide it like somewhere between 16 to 18 dough balls. If you want larger tortillas, you can divide it maybe into 10 to 12. It really is up to you. So I'm just going to do that tuck and turn and create all of my dough balls. And then I'm going to place all of them back into the bowl. And I'm using a damp kitchen paper towel. And I've just wet it in warm water, squeezed it out, and that's going to make sure that the dough doesn't dry out. So for the next recipe out of my cookbook, I'm going with my easy everyday salsa. This salsa is the one that my grandmother made, my mom made. They make it to this day because we always have tomatoes, jalapeno, onion, and garlic. So in a pot of water, I've added 4 Roma tomatoes, half of a medium-sized onion, 1 very spicy jalapeno. It almost is as spicy as serrano, which you could use, and 3 cloves of garlic. I'm gonna bring that up to a boil. So I'm working on the refried beans. Here I preheated my pan. I'm adding a little bit of rendered bacon fat. I reserved some, maybe like a tablespoon or so. You could also use cooking oil for this. Now I'm going to add a little bit of diced onion. This adds great flavor. And I'm going to saute this until they get translucent and all of this rendered bacon fat becomes aromatic. It smells good already. Here I already have my boiled pinto beans. These are not seasoned. I like to just boil a pot and separate them and use them throughout the week. This is the rest of 1 pot that I made, and it's going in. And if you need to add more liquid to the beans, let's just say you're using store-bought pinto beans and you drain all of the liquid that's in the can, you can add chicken broth. That's a great way to add flavor to your refried beans. So I'm going to let my beans simmer. And I will be seasoning them, but these were frozen, then I thawed in the refrigerator, so they're still kind of cold. I'm going to season my beans with a little bit of fancy light chili powder. It's kind of like a blend of other spices with chili powder. And here's a fun game we can all play. You can season your beans how you like. So this is what I'm doing today. I added the chili powder. Now I'm going to add some smoked paprika into the mix. I'm also going to add some granulated garlic powder and ground cumin. Again, season how you like. Some people just add salt and pepper and call it a day, which is fine. Okay, so I'm gonna give this a mix, and I still want this to come up to a simmer, and I want to let it cook and simmer for at least 5 to 10 minutes, because again, the beans are really cold. Oh, and before I forget, I am going to be adding salt to taste. When I boiled these, I added no salt, so it is going to need some salt in the mix. Everything is to your palate and to your preference. So you wanna give your beans a taste. and all that good stuff to make sure that, they're delicious. So while that's coming up to a simmer, I'm going to work on the salsa. This is done, so I'm going to remove it from the heat and blend. So I've drained most of the water, and I'm just going to add all of my boiled tomatoes, jalapeno, garlic, and onion. And over there, sitting on the side, I have a cup of the boiling liquid. I'm going to add a little bit. And now I'm going to add some salt. Again, you can add salt to your preference, salt to taste, or you can even add some chicken bouillon powder. I like to do that as well sometimes. So now let's blend. Now I'm going to pour it into a salsa bowl or whatever bowl you have. We used to use empty country crock containers, and you'll want to taste it for salt, and then it's done. Okay, so the beans have simmered for close to 10 minutes, so I'm going to start mashing and mixing them. And if you find that your beans are a little too watery, that's okay. Mash them and just gently simmer them until they thicken. And also be sure to taste for salt and seasoning. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to make agua de pepino con limón. That's a cucumber freshwater drink with lime. I have 1 English cucumber, 1 medium to large lime, a half cup of sugar, and I'll be using 3 cups of cold water and a pinch of salt. Let's put it together. In a blender cup, I'm adding all of the cucumber. I'm also going to add a pinch of salt and the juice of 1 large lime. Here I'm adding my half cup of sugar, and I'm adding the 3 cups of cold water. And now I'm just going to puree well. So I'm going to pour this in a pitcher. Typically I like to add a pound of ice into the mix, but this pitcher is not large enough. And here I've just reserved some thin slices of cucumber for garnish. And this is it. This is the drink. Adjust the sweetness to your preference. If you want to start with a 1/4 cup of sugar and work your way up, that's up to you. This is the ratio that I like. It's so refreshing. It's so good and simple to make. Okay, so it's time to work on my flour tortillas. I'm going to start making them and cooking them. So here the dough is very soft, rested, and pliable. That's what you want before you roll them out. You know, when you start rolling out your tortillas and they just don't stretch out, they kind of shrink back, that is a good indication that the dough needs to rest longer. So you want to be sure to rest for like 15 to 20 minutes. That's my opinion. People make their tortillas differently. This is just how I make them. I'm a creature of habit. I've been making them for a very long time. So that's just a tip. Okay, so once I have this rolled out, and again, you can leave these thick. You can roll them out really thin. It's to your preference. I know people have different preferences. So I am going to place this on the side of the bowl, and I'm going to roll out maybe 4 or 5. You want to preheat your pan right before smoke point and start making them. And if you want a more detailed recipe video for soft flour tortillas, then I will link. I have a couple of them out there. And like I said, I have the written recipe in my cookbook. Once they are cooked, you want to keep them covered or bundled up to stay warm. So I have enough done. I'm going to put this meal together. But first, I have a little story about the cheese. So if we were lucky and on good days, we would use queso fresco. That is my favorite. But for the most part, it was government cheese, and we would just cut it into thin, small slices or shred it. And we would add homemade salsa to the tortilla with the beans, and that was the meal. That's what got us through hard times. And there were a lot of mouths to feed. So we pretty much only had like 2 tacos each. And if we were lucky, maybe 3. Dare I call this a struggle food? I don't think so. Honestly, this is comfort food, and I am very fortunate when I do make this. But budget-wise, it is very economical. So I don't know what category this falls in. It's not a chefy taco, by the way. It's very simple, but it was a staple in my household. It's a staple now that I'm an adult. I feed it to my kids, and it's good. It's a solid taco. Like I said, there are a million ways to make a good taco, but this one is top tier, my friend, in my opinion. So here's one with the queso fresco. And you could really bulk up this taco with like shredded lettuce, avocado, crema, but typically we would use those ingredients for the next day because we made tons of refried beans, and the next day we would make tostadas. So there's that. So I hope you give this recipe a try. I hope you like it, and thanks for watching.